All right, we're all set, Keelan, whenever you're ready.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the Options Learning Program overview. I'm really excited to be able to share this day with you and review everything options learning. Just as we get into this quick caveat, we have a lot of aspects of our program. This is an overview, so there may be some opportunities for us to go in depth, but we will be giving just this general kind of insight into what happens in options as each department interacts with our scholars or with our LCs or with our STs. But that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be any opportunities for questions. So there's going to be portions throughout this presentation that will afford the opportunity to ask questions. And if there are things that go beyond this presentation, we will also be able to collect these questions and send out a possible FAQ or some type of answer document to be able to ensure that we are imparting the appropriate information that is going to allow you to be the most effective in your role in supporting our scholars and our families. Okay, so this is our agenda. We will review our mission and vision. We'll also just talk about the purpose. We'll talk about our team and just the general program overview. We'll talk about LC and ST responsibilities. We'll also talk about connection meetings, attendance, truancy and options, ed support funds, and the FOA. All right. We're also going to talk about curriculum, A through G pathway, early explorers, OCLC. And we also just over the years, and I guess I can say over the year for me, we took an opportunity to gather a few misconceptions and created a slide to address some of those. So then it could be used as a conversation piece as we head into our QA as well. So that is what we will be using this time for. And the key piece is going to be your participation. So again, if you have those questions, this is going to be the best place to share those. So then we can communicate and address those at this time. The overall purpose of this meeting, again, is to have a general overview of the options program, but it is also to build pathways for collaboration with other departments and to address misconceptions and align practices for improved scholar outcomes. If we can make sure that we address these points throughout this meeting, I think this is going to be a successful presentation. Okay, and our mission and vision. Mission statement shows that we drive to inspire and develop innovative, creative, and self-directed learners, one scholar at a time. And our vision is to create a collaborative virtual learning community, inspiring scholars to appreciate the ways in which arts and sciences nurture a curiosity for lifelong learning and prepare scholars to take responsibility for their future success. So this aligns with what we do within our Arctic values as well. And our main focus throughout this meeting is going to be centered around teamwork, integrity, and communication. Because we know when we can trust each other to do the work that we're doing, we can all improve and do better with that, because we're allowing each other to grow and prosper in our roles and in our prospective responsibilities. And then that will in turn empower other departments to be able to do the same way, which is why we bring in the aspect of teamwork and communication. All right, this guy, we want to share out our team. So I am the director of options learning, as you know, and working with you has been a great opportunity and a great experience. And our leadership team, Jason B., Alex Domino, Alyssa Hurtado, Carly Roberts, Christina Vert, Tara Winberry Litt, Heather Hardy, and Linda Larson. So this represents our options leadership team. And each teacher, each coordinator has a roster of teachers who has a roster of scholars. And we are trying to make sure that we're creating seamless processes and systems that would allow our teachers to be really focused on instruction and allow our parents and our LCs to really focus on providing that instruction at home. What we want to be able to do in our roles is ensure that all departments are able to provide the supports and services that our scholars need. Okay, and now we will go into our options program overview.
Good morning, everyone. This beautiful slide here kind of encompasses 7 main parts of what the options program entails, starting with the Compass experience all the way down to the collaboration with the instructional connection meetings. We have assessments. We work within the academic calendar. We use the OPS system to be able to purchase curriculum and other supplementary materials for our scholars. We collect attendance, and we use Seesaw for the digital portfolio. Each of the coordinators has different slides that they'll be covering throughout our presentation that will go more in depth on all of these different areas.
Okay, and with that, any questions? Anybody have any thoughts or questions to start us off? And if not, we can just dive right into the presentation. All right, let's go.
All right, everyone. So the options program is really for a parent or a learning coach who wants to be fully committed and involved in their scholars' learning. They will be implementing curriculum from our approved community provider list, creating a compelling learning environment for their scholar, providing challenging lessons, providing excellent feedback, and also working closely with our supervising teachers for some of these things like ordering curriculum, following the family order agreement, the master agreement, and just making sure that they're getting those supports from their supervising teacher to help make their scholars successful. They also will be partnering with them to complete a learning plan every learning period.
Sorry, I have a little helper here who was chatting. I was waiting. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our learning coach responsibilities. Learning coaches are an integral part of the options program, and as such, they have a lot of responsibility that they take on when signing their scholar up for the options program. One of the responsibilities is to attend the monthly connection meeting with their scholar or scholars. They also need to make sure that they are submitting the curriculum orders on time and that they're following the FOA, which is our family order agreement. They complete and sign the daily logs. They submit scholar assignments for the body of work for each learning period. They have to be available to communicate regularly through email and phone with the supervising teacher. And they also support their scholars in taking our benchmarks, the STAR assessments, and when time comes to make sure that they are signing up for the CAS, hopefully, fingers crossed. And we also want to make sure that the LC is making sure our scholars are working in their curriculum on a daily basis during the week.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I get to present to you guys the role of the supervising teacher, the best slide here. So our supervising teachers, they do a lot. First thing, we have assistance with curriculum suggestions. We guide our learning coaches in implementing an effective curriculum tailored towards our scholars' needs. They also review and update academic progress, regularly checking on scholars' academic growth, and they update all scholar records, review, grade, and provide feedback for all submitted assignments. They ensure fair evaluation and constructive feedback on all scholar work. They assign grades, so they assign appropriate grades to scholars based on their performance. They update our PLPs, or our personalized learning plans. Some of you might have heard of those. They monitor and refresh the personalized learning plans as needed. They review and approve all orders placed by the learning coach. So that involves collaborating with learning coaches to approve necessary materials and orders and services, classes, etc. They collaborate with the learning coach on instructional and intervention strategies. So we work closely with our learning coaches to design and implement targeted strategies. They ensure compliance and launch the tiered re-engagement process when necessary. So they act on engagement issues and enforce necessary protocols that we have in place. They host daily, weekly live synchronous instruction. That helps facilitate real-time interactive lessons. They identify scholars who need intervention and launch and facilitate the SST process when necessary. So we recognize scholars needing support and implement that SST interventions are in place. We proctor all required testing, including STAR, CASP, LPAC. So we're administering and overseeing all of that standardized testing and attending IEP meetings and providing present levels of performance. So STs are expected to actively participate in IEPs and provide insights into scholar performance. Whew, That was a lot. Next slide, please. But wait, there's more. So I'm putting on here because I did not even scratch the surface of what all of our supervising teachers do. So I put this meme here just because I felt like it was so important to like capture the role of our supervising teachers. It's extensive, and the previous slide can't possibly capture all the intricacies that are involved. There's always new duties being added to their plate, and even some of the details are left out of that last slide. For instance, the supervising teacher sends the master agreement prior to ordering period opening. They ensure timely completion, oversee the scholar's educational funds budget, and they maintain Seesaw, which houses all of the body of work for our scholars. If you don't know what body of work is, that's okay. You're going to find out soon. Their responsibilities are continuing to evolve, and it's really hard to capture them all in one slide. So in closing, I just want to say a huge thank you to our supervising teachers. They're really the backbone of our program. I cannot possibly list all their tasks here, but we know how important they are. So they work hard for our scholars. We really appreciate everything they do, and they're the best of the best. Okay, next slide, Keelan. Check in real quick. That was a lot, those last couple slides. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I had just went over? I'm terrible with wait time, so I might give it a couple seconds. Okay, wait, did I hear a
the
mic?
chat just to make sure.
Okay, I was like, who
Also,
opened
just
their
check the
mic?
chat.
It was
I
you.
think
All right, we'll move us on. Monthly connection meetings. So scholars and learning coaches have to meet with their ST monthly. Really, it's every 20 days, so we say it monthly. Regular meetings ensure alignment and collaboration between our learning coaches and our supervising teachers and our scholars. Our connection meetings are an opportunity for live collaboration by video conference. We utilize technology to foster that live interaction and feedback. So we require them to do a platform like Zoom or Google Hangouts where we can actually see our learning coaches and engage with our scholars. They review and update the scholars' progress on their PLPs or personalized learning plan every period. So it's ongoing scholar, learning coach, and teacher collaboration on course standards progress. So it fosters a triad of collaboration to ensure scholars are on track. STs monitor scholar progress during the connection meetings. They maintain a watchful eye on our scholars' progress through regular touch points throughout the month. The ST approves the submitted activity log. So we review and approve scholars' documented activities in school pathways. And that's also a time for us to discuss the scholars' body of work for the month and plan for the next month. So we reflect on the accomplishments and strategize for the coming month. And that's it for me. I'm now going to hand it off to Kylie Roberts.
Thank you so much, Christina. So I'm going to be touching on a little bit about our attendance and assignments, because this comes down on our STs every learning period and they get super bogged down. So our supervising teachers oversee those learning coaches who are required to update attendance daily on those activity logs in the portal of School Pathways. So there is the mandatory requirement that each learning period that the supervising teacher ensures the learning coach is signing off that attendance log, each LP, to verify that those assignments or that the scholar was working, whether it's PE and or any of their enrolled courses. The learning coach is, again, going in through their parent portal of School Pathways to do that, and our STs monitor it weekly. Otherwise, it's going to be triggering truancy. So we also, those STs are verifying and reviewing those assignments that are submitted into Seesaw, and they're going through those assignments and ensure that the scholar is making satisfactory educational progress in those enrolled courses, which the work that is submitted aligns to their grade level standards. Now, for our truancy policy in options, our truancy policy states that scholars must submit 5 assignments every 5 days, because that comes from our board policy. So the handbook clarifies that a little more, that assignments in options actually includes those activity logs, the daily completion of the activity log, benchmark assessments, live communicated in those live communication through those connection meetings with their supervising teacher, and then the submission of that body of work, those completed assignments, which is bare minimum at least 1 completed assignment in every enrolled course. So those are our minimum requirements. Supervising teachers do have the ability, it's stated in their handbook, that should they feel they need to see more work, which many do, they request additional work, completed assignments from the scholar that must be submitted within, I believe, days. So failure to complete and uphold these items would trigger truancy that our supervising teachers are like first line of defense in ensuring that those scholars remain in good standing with us. So now we are back at we have a check-in. Any questions so far?
Okay.
Excellent. Now I'm gonna pass on over the mic to Alex.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about educational support funds, the FOA and curriculum. So educational support funds is just that, funds that support education. So all of our scholars in options are allocated certain amounts each semester. So each semester, scholars will receive, so K-8 receives 1,500, 9 through 12, 1,650, TK 1,200, our OCLC K-8, 650, and OCLC TK receives 250. To spend each semester on materials or services to support their education at home. Core curriculum has to be ordered first, and the core curriculum is makes up 25% of their funding. So 25% has to be spent towards that core curriculum, math, like art, science, social studies. And then once those orders have been placed, LCs can then go and place in service orders and supplemental material and extracurricular activities. But all orders must align with the courses on the MA and the PLP. Next slide, please. The Family Order Agreement, or the FOA, is a form sent by the ST for the LCs to read and review our policies. And it has to be signed before any orders are approved by the ST. It just basically overviews their responsibilities and use of educational funding, and it's something that the ST refers back to throughout the year in case any orders come up that are questionable. Next slide, please. So for the curriculum, the MA and FOA must be signed again prior to the first order being approved. STs help their families choose the curriculum based on the scholar's learning style and needs. So in that initial connection meeting, if they're a brand new family to homeschooling, they'll start having that discussion of what the scholar needs, and they'll help give curriculum recommendations. Curriculum must be grade level and standards based. If a scholar happens to be below grade level, they will still have to use grade level materials with supplements to get them to grade level. And then, of course, if we have scholars who require modified curriculum, they'll work with SPED and their ed specialists to find what works best. And then LCs have to send a picture of a signed packing slip to their ST within 2 days of receiving any orders. So that way they can be marked off as receipts.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'll be going over the high school A through G pathways for our options scholars. So we're lucky in the options program because our scholars have 2 pathways to take the A through G courses. The first way is they can use our own Accelerate Education online courses with our online teachers as support in those classes. We are very grateful for the partnership that we've developed over the years between options program and our online high school, and scholars can use their education support funds to create purchase orders and actually be enrolled in exciting courses with our own teachers here at Compass. It's a great way to promote both programs. The scholars can also enroll in our A through G Google Classrooms. These are project-based classes. They're designed for our options scholars who might be more interested in a project-based approach rather than more of a structured and scaffold approach that might come. We are all about personalizing the curriculum and the experience that scholars get. So it's a great partnership, and I'm grateful for it. Currently, for the Google Classrooms, we have 13 courses approved through the course catalog, and I'll be overseeing those courses this year. And if you go next slide. And just like any A through G expectation, these courses, obviously all of our accelerated education courses are A through G approved, but also our Google Classrooms are also A through G approved. They are rigorous. They are intended to prepare the scholars for college and higher level work. Scholars in both options, whether it be online or the Google Classrooms, they follow a pacing guide for their assignments. They submit assignments to their supervising teacher for the options. Google Classrooms, or to their online content teacher right through Accelerate Ed, and they're graded by the content teacher or their supervising teacher. This is one where the learning coach obviously will give feedback and they will review the assignment, but ultimately it is the highly qualified teacher that is assigning that grade. Like I said, we're grateful for the partnership for online with Highland High School. They are being invited to the learning labs, and we do reach out time to time for that content area expertise to lend a hand with some of those more rigorous assignments that come in. And both programs, the rigor is there. If they're in the online Accelerate Ed courses, they have proctored midterms and finals they sit for, just like the online scholars have to. And the scholars that are enrolled in the Google Classrooms, they do submit a final project that's a culmination, kind of a keystone project that they turn into their supervising teacher for final grading.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. And I noticed there's a bunch of questions in the chat. Do we want to pause for a second and just answer some questions before we go into the last few slides, or would you like us to hold these till the end, Keelan?
Oh, we can hold. We have a couple more slides, so I just think it'll be best use of time.
Okay, all right, so I'll go through this slide, Early Explorers Options Program. This is our pilot year for the Early Explorers program. It is the combo TK and Kinder program. Last year, we piloted just TK on its own, and so this year we're excited to combine the TK and Kinder into its own program called Early Explorers. Our transitional kindergarten scholars this year, any scholar who's 5 between September 2nd and April 2nd, so that's a longer period of time now, is available or able to enroll in transitional kindergarten. Kindergartners still, if they're 5 by September 1st, they're enrolled in kindergarten. So now we have this 2-year cohort where we are working with kids as they come in, turning 5 during the school year, and then those who are already 5. They get support by a specialized TKK teacher. Currently, we have 7, soon to be 8 teachers who work with our special TKK program. They have their same virtual lessons each day for our TK and K scholars. They are focused on those standards that are specific to those grade levels, and TK is the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program. So it just gives that benefit of time for a scholar who is starting up their journey in their formal education to have plenty of time to develop those skills and to start interacting with peers and getting familiar with this more formalized education. The teachers help those learning coaches just like any of our STs do, and they're going to really support our LCs as they join Compass. Many of them, I would say 70% of our TKK scholars are brand new to Compass. So it's a really exciting place for our school to grow. And as they come in and they start working with our supervising teachers are helping train those brand new learning coaches and our new scholars, helping them to learn the systems and the processes that we have here at Compass, and setting a really good foundation for them so that they can be successful all the way through their learning journey with us. And those TKK kiddos, as they come in, we provide several opportunities for them to interact with their TKK cohort, those peers that that they get to learn from and interact with, which is really wonderful. Curriculum, we have some suggested curriculum for our TKK scholars. Our parents still have lots of choice when it comes to curriculum to do the things that they feel are going to be most beneficial for their children. And of course, a lot of the suggestions are very hands-on, very play-based, very experiential, which is honoring those early learning developmental stages of our TKK kiddos. And of course, they choose from those approved vendors that we have through the educational funds. And again, our TK scholars, they get about $2,400 for the full year, $1,200 each semester. And our TK scholars, our kinder scholars get the $3,000 funding, so $1,500 per semester. And with that, I'll send it over to our OCLC and let them tell about their program.
Hi, everybody. So we just signed our new lease yesterday. So huge props to everybody that was a part of that. And just so you guys know, a huge shout out to Liz. I know she's not here, but she rented a U-Haul down in San Diego, loaded a bunch of brand new desks. And I think Danielle helped her load it. It was crazy. And they drove it all the way up. And then we unloaded it, I think, in the hottest day in Santa Ana for the summer. But it was a great day. We were able to sign the lease and get things started. So we are very excited by that. So this is our new location is 600 North Main. So we're in Santa Ana. So our program in a whole is a 2-day-a-week program. So the scholars that choose to be a part of the OCLC that have to live in San Diego or one of the counties that attaches to San Diego, they come to our program on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the school day goes from 9 a.m. to 2:15. And then during that time, we teach them all of the history and all of the science and and they have enrichment options as well. So we have 7 classrooms, 8 teachers. We have TK, we serve TK through 8th grade. And our class sizes, we keep a 10-to-1 ratio in the TKK class. And then we go 20 or below in the 1st and 2nd grade class. And then our other classes go up to 24. Max at 145, that was a number that was pre-established before we moved to our new location. So we might be able to grow possibly there, but currently our enrollment's at 130. Mm-hmm. So the curriculum at the OCLC, since we take care of all the history and all the science, the teachers that are on site, so the teachers that are on site as well also have a roster. They have rosters of only OCLC families. And they have a reduced roster as opposed to the regular supervising teachers because they're also teaching and prepping and preparing to teach. So they teach 2 full days and then preparing. So we have a history and science that we offer. And then the families do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They take care of all their language arts and their math. And we have what's called a classical model. So the whole entire school, TK through 8th grade, is studying the same concepts in science and the same time period in history. So we're back to cycle 1, which is kind of cool. We're in our new place, starting fresh, starting new with cycle 1. And cycle 1 this year is ancient times in history and biology. Cycle 2, which we'll do next year, is medieval, Renaissance, and in science is earth science. Cycle 3 is modern times. And it takes that Elizabeth I all the way up to the Civil War. And we do chemistry for science. And then in cycle 4, we have modern times. So we take the Civil War up to the modern times. And then we have physics that go with that. So this allows us, when the whole school is studying the same time period and the same concepts, we have incredible festivals, which I know we've kind of shared with you guys and invited you to. If you can make it, it's a great experience. We have history festivals, science projects, all the way through that come out. And it's great teaching the history and science because those things it should be taught or are most beneficially to be taught in a group situation, very hands-on project base. And then language arts and math at home can be taught at their ability base. So it really is a great hybrid program that kind of brings the best of both worlds. And then my better half is going to do the second page.
Oh, you're so sweet. All right, so enrichment classes for the 23-24 school year. Sorry, that is the wrong date. My brain is crazy all the time. We have art, drama, guitar, creative writing, yoga, PE, and games and strategies. Based on the level, the kids will go through 3 of those different classes. So our older kids will get yearbook and arts and guitar, and then our younger kids will have the yoga and the gardening and PE and games and strategies, depending on their grade level. So it's really fun. They get a little taste of different things throughout the year. Our funding is the K-8 scholars. Sorry, the trash truck is of course going by right now. The K-8 scholars have $650 for educational support funds, $400 in the first semester and $250 the second semester. And our TKers will receive $250 in educational support funds. Linda kind of covered a lot of that. So our kids get a lot of touches. They have their ST, who may or may not be their classroom teacher. Some of our kids have 2 classroom teachers. If they are 3rd through 8th grade, they have a history teacher specialist and a science teacher specialist. So we really work as a team. Sometimes we'll all sit on IEPs together. If we have an SST, that kid might have 3 supervising teachers with them, along with me and Linda. So we really do give our kids a lot of personalized learning supports.
All right, so now, like we had mentioned, we were going to cover some common misconceptions. Things have morphed definitely through the years at Compass since the original beginnings of our options program. So we are going to kick it off with a few things here. So it is true that 5 assignments in 5 days, as I had mentioned previously, this is part of the board policy. Therefore, that refers to those attendance that's marked in the SIS daily. It is not the false, which is, well, those will be popping up later. I think our slide's a little backwards, but the false is that scholars must turn in an assignment every single day to their supervising teacher. So the 5 assignments in 5 days is part of board policy, but that refers to the marking of the attendance daily in the parent portal of the SIS. And then another true is that 2 assignments are uploaded to the SIS from the body of work collection. So it's not that we only collect 2 assignments every learning period. They're actually bare minimum collecting 1 completed assignment from every enrolled course, but it's from that bare minimum, but there's usually a lot more to get the body of work. The ST chooses 2 of those that would be uploaded into the SIS as a work sample. All orders with ed funds must align to the courses on the master agreement and align to state standards. So scholars don't just get to, or learning coaches just get to order whatever. That supervising teacher not only oversees the scholar's budget, but they're ensuring that every order that crosses through OPS to them, they are checking to make sure, does this align with this course on the master agreement? Does it support the learning for that, whether it is the actual core curriculum, maybe it's something supplemental to that to ensure that the scholar is, maybe like the supervising teacher knows and the learning coach know that they need a little scaffolding. So they may order something a little lower. However, that core curriculum for the enrolled course is there and has been purchased, but sometimes they may need to scaffold a little, so they can order a little down or a little up. However, that body of work is going to be the grade level. Our supervising teachers support our learning coaches to ensure all subjects are covered each learning period. So that comes down to the reviewing the personalized learning plan and ensuring that all courses are all the courses on the MA aligned to the PLP, and that's when those orders come through, and ensure that everything they receive is aligned to those courses in that body of work. So now, looking at what the falses are, exact opposites of these, that they only turn in 5 assignments every week. No, that aligns to that board policy. Are only 2 assignments collected every learning period? No. Only 2 work samples are required to be uploaded. Our learning coaches, do they have free rein to order materials? Absolutely not. This is probably one of the hardest points for our supervising teachers is verifying those orders, digging into OPS, aligning it with the courses from the MA and on the PLP. Do learning coaches assign the grades at the end of the semester? Nope. That's the supervising teacher. They are ensuring that all of the work that they receive, that body of work that is received each learning period, is aligned to that scholar's course on their master agreement, and that they are making a satisfactory educational progress, which aligns to those state standards, and that they are making progress, and they look at that body of work. And it's through that connection meeting that they're having the conversation with the learning coach and the scholar, and they're verifying, like, is progress being made? Okay, maybe they didn't quite meet the mark. Well, let's revisit this again next learning period. So from one learning period to the next, 1 month to the next, the scholar can make progress and continue to grow so that by the end of each semester, they have satisfactory educational progress in those grade level standards. And the supervising teacher is responsible and does give the grade on the report card. Does every subject have to be marked daily in the SIS? No, it does not. They can do like a block schedule, and our learning coaches know that. That's part of what we sell them, the beauty of our program. You could do a block schedule, and maybe they're only going to do language arts and math on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but they do more of it because they still have to progress through the semester's worth of work through those standards. And then maybe on the alternating days, they do science, social studies, but they still are held to maintaining and earning that, making that satisfactory educational progress through the grade level standards. And that is something that the supervising teacher oversees. So you may not see every subject marked every day, and that's okay, just because the supervising teacher verifies that at the end of each LP. And I will pass it on over to Keelan.
Great. Thanks, team. Really appreciate that. So I see that there were questions that popped up in the chat. So this will be our time to be able to address them. I think Christina stated that she wanted to bring voice to one specific one. I'll go back through and look at, but I'll pass the mic to you while I look at the other questions.
Yeah, thanks, Keelan. So I'm actually, that one's a doozy, our ordering, and it's very tricky. It's very intricate. So I'm going to pop in a link to our FOA form. I want you all to click it so you can see exactly what we're talking about. This is something that we send out to our learning coaches. Our learning coaches have to sign the FOA and the master agreement before we're allowed to process orders. And within the FOA, you can see the first bullet point kind of covers the question that Aaron and Melissa had asked about that 25% of core and what that actually means. So we should have had on there as a common misconception is 25% has to be used on core curriculum, because a lot of us think it has to be used on like a curriculum set 25% of their funds, and that's not necessarily true. Some of our LCs do have 4 or 5 children and they pass the curriculum down from scholar to scholar, and that's okay. That's what our supervising teachers do, and they meet with their families in their connection meetings, and they're documenting and verifying that they have curriculum in place that they can use throughout the year. So does that mean that they don't have to use the 25% for core? No, they still do. So you'll see on the first bullet point of the FOA, if you click it open, it says once the core curriculum is confirmed by the ST, a minimum of 25% of the total educational support funds must continue to be reserved for standards-based, correct grade level core materials and services. So they could be using it for like a math tutoring class that supplements their Math 6A course on their master agreement. They could be using it for a class on OutSchool that supplements the curriculum that mom's using. It doesn't necessarily have to be 25% on core curriculum. We also have Freckle, and Freckle is a curriculum that's provided to all of our scholars. So that covers us there as well. Did I answer that question thoroughly? Did anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think so. I know when we're working with our special populations, at times it's come up from families like this part. And so, so essentially like those services. So if it is an outside vendor or a third party that's providing tutoring in that area, that also suffices for the 25%.
if it's attached to a course. So we consider our math, language arts, science, and social studies, those are our core
Yes.
subjects. If it's
Yeah.
elective or if it's enrichment, no. So we have things in there too, like we have ballet classes or gymnastics that they can use their educational
Right.
support fund for because it's aligned to enrichment. That wouldn't count for the 25%. But if it's something that counts under math, science, social studies, or language arts, and it is aligned to the standards that they're working on and we're documenting it on the PLP, absolutely.
Okay, so, but I guess what's tying me up is that just that and services, I think is what's kind of tying me up a little bit. So so they still would need to have like standard-based grade level curriculum, but they could have like the remainder of that 25% could be, let's say that's a math program that they're working with. And then the remainder of that, if it's not totaling the 25%, could be that like a math tutor. Is that kind of what
It
you
could
guys
be
think?
like that, but usually our like tutors, like we do have some tutors, but a lot of them do like math with Mr. D or like math with Mrs. Fish, and they're actually like math classes that they can bring their curriculum to, and then they'll work them through their curriculum. But we also do have like a Sylvan tutoring. And so when I hear tutoring, I think like Sylvan type thing. We do have those, but I'm talking more of like the math with Mrs. Fish, math with Mr. D
Okay,
type.
but
program.
those do all account for that 25%, or that's additional?
If it
Yeah,
aligns.
because it's connected to the core curriculum. It's connected to what they're doing in their core.
Yeah, as long as it supports the core, it's still part of that core. And then in high school, it's a
It
little
does,
bit of a
yeah.
different story, and maybe
Yeah.
Jason can talk about that, but anything on a high school scholars transcript is required. And so all of that would count towards the 25%. We wouldn't make a distinction between an elective and not, because everything that is on that master agreement for a high school scholar is required for them for graduation.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah, because it counts for credits. High school's a bit different.
Is there something more specific that you want to get some information on, Erin, in regards to that 25% allotment for those additional services?
I just know from some of the scholars that we worked with, that sometimes they would have the majority of their funding going towards some of those.
The majority of the
Yeah.
25%?
Well, no, I'm just saying, I guess when I think of this, I think of like, okay, so they're doing, they're taking world history in high school. And so they need to find a program that can help best provide the standard alignment for world history in high school. So is it a combination of purchasing? So let's say they're using Houghton Mifflin. I'm just throwing out a curricula. So I don't know if anyone on here is having the same questions that I have, but is that like that set of the actual curricula itself? Or is it that, okay, if they're taking world history and they have a hand-me-down, right? They have a sibling that had that material, let's say last year. So they're using that. So they might not necessarily need anything new, but they could purchase, or they could go through a third-party vendor to get, let's say, working with a tutor online or working with a support service online for that world history class. They don't need to purchase that content, let's say, but they can purchase that partnership
Support.
or
Yeah.
that service. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm trying to clarify for just myself.
I had a hard time wrapping my brain around this at first too. Like we have core and then we have core curriculum. And it's like we use those words interchangeably. Like core curriculum really doesn't have anything to do with the 25%. Yes, we have to verify that core curriculum is placed and document it, but the 25% is just reserved for core courses and making sure those services and supplies, curriculum could be in there too. They actually support the core courses on EMA. Does that make sense? So like it's hard because we use the same word almost interchangeably, but the 25% isn't core curriculum. It could be the curriculum they're using, but they could also do pass down. We just have to make sure that 25% is reserved to use for those core classes. Whether it be
and this stems from this was prior to me being here, and you're probably aware of this too, Erin, from one of our oversights from a previous Watts visit that shared that there was concern that we don't know how much money is being spent toward core instruction. So the 25% was earmarked to ensure that we have some evidence that money is being used toward core instruction, whether that would be direct core materials for that subject, or even support materials, ancillary materials to support core instruction. So it's not going to be earmarked directly for a textbook It's not going to be earmarked directly for a reader. It could be, okay, I have that reader, but I'm going to use this support to ensure that this instruction is happening for that specific subject.
Okay, and that's verified then for like
Yes.
verifying that. Okay, because I know
The ST is, yes.
okay.
Ooh, Michelle brought a good question in there. I don't know if I missed anyone else. That religious curriculum question. And that's a hot topic that we have a lot of the time. We are not allowed to order anything that's religious here at Compass. So if it's a religious, it is going to get denied. CP is fantastic with denying those items if it's religious at all. It's not allowed to be processed. That being said, though, we can't prevent anyone at home from teaching because our learning coaches are eyes and our ears and they're teaching at home. You can't prevent what they're teaching their scholars outside of school hours either. So sometimes we do have learning coaches in there by curriculum separately on their own that's religious. We can't control everything that they're doing. We do have to make sure they have 25% that's aligned to their core courses, and we cannot accept any work samples or anything in the body of the work that has that religious content in it. But if they're teaching religion at home, it's like going to church on Sunday, right? Like we can't do that. We can't interfere with it, but none of our samples or our assignments contain any religious content, and we will not purchase any religious materials through educational support funds.
And in the past, even as recent as last year, it came to our attention that there were certain either vendors or certain materials that were being submitted, and those would be reviewed, and then those would be removed, and another sample could be requested at that time. So it's not like something that's just kind of like saying, oh, well, we'll just get whatever we want and submit that for work. Our teachers are really, really keen on discerning those work samples and understanding the different vendors that may, they could shell off as a general kind of service provider, but may also provide support in a more religious or, in a more religious manner. We've had several different instances where teachers have just stated like this material, I want to check on this to see if this is something that we can submit. And after we've done an investigation and made that determination, we notified that we will not be able to receive any work from this vendor or any more work samples of this nature, and really give them that time to make those corrections. If not, if that does become a problem where they can't meet that, then that would be a reason for us to take further intervention, whether that's taking them through our tiered re-engagement system because they're not meeting the requirements of the master agreement and of the board policy.
If I can just add
Scholar
to
Handbook.
like just one caveat to this is at times, such as when a scholar is taking a course like world history, they might be learning about different religions. And so in those cases, seeing religious type information on the work sample, it would be appropriate because that's in alignment with that standard.
Yes, it just depends on like there's certain vendors that even came up this summer where interested family wanted to come over but say that I needed to use this specific vendor. We inspected the vendor and saw that on the CDE website, this was not an authorized vendor to be able to use any instructional materials because they use not just religious-based material, but racially insensitive information and things that could be seen as indoctrinating for like a cult. And so they've been put on the you cannot use list, and we had to inform that family that we will not be able to honor that vendor coming over. And then that family decided not to come. So it's a lot of steps that go into that for us to really look at these materials. Families, for the most part, are very direct, and they'll say, hey, can I use this? And we inform them that you can't. But there have been some situations where families still want to do the work that they're doing, and those samples get submitted, and we do a good job of looking into that and making sure that the appropriate materials are being submitted.
Don had another great question of do all work samples collected by STs need to be in English? This comes up several times a year. So this one's a tricky one, and I always take it back to like my classroom experience. If you have a scholar that does not speak the English language and you're trying to teach them something, sometimes they will produce in their native language. And as STs, we're looking at, does the scholar understand the concept? And depending on the subject, we're not always necessarily testing them on their English language acquisition at the moment, right? In science or social studies, we're more, do they understand the concepts that are being taught? So sometimes you might see, depending on where the scholar is, in their English proficiency a sample that's not in the English language. That being said, we don't want to accept samples that are, I'm just going to say Spanish in all Spanish. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes a scholar can only produce in Spanish and the ST will push them to try their best in English, but sometimes you'll see it in both because we're trying to see what do they really understand concept-wise in this subject and how much are they really doing English-wise? Where are they at in their English proficiency? So those are two different things. You might see sometimes a different language. This came up with Aviva a long time ago and we asked her and she said that is okay as long as we are still pushing our scholars to try their best to do it in English at the same time. So no, we're not bilingual. We will never just accept all Spanish work samples. We'll be pushing them to do it in English, but we're also looking for a concept of how much they understand of it. Does that make sense?
Can I just jump in here real quick? Because I think this would be a good time to talk about how we actually assess our scholars. Because we do have that monthly standing connection meeting that all of our supervising teachers have with their scholars. And so when we're assessing the scholar's body of work, yes, it includes the information, the assignments that are sent in and that are graded, but also our teachers are able to speak with the scholar every month, have them share about their learning, and then ask them different probing questions and get them to really kind of bring out what they learned. And this alternative form or qualitative data that we can also collect or connection meetings, that also plays a role in that overall grade for the scholar.
Janae, I didn't mean to undo your hand. I meant to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry. I may have missed pieces of it. So, but you're saying like if they submit something like in like their native language, that's not necessarily like assessed for standard mastery, right? It's just like they can do that as showing like the scaffolding to get to the end assignment.
Yes, that's correct. So we're still pushing them to do the English language, but I'm saying like we have a lot of scholars, some of them that come to us that don't speak any English at all. And it's just Spanish. So at that point, if we were to say like everything needs to be in English, we wouldn't get any work samples at all, like from them. It would be pulling teeth. So just as you would in the classroom, we're asking them to produce something, and then we're still supporting them with those ELD standards and trying to get them to do it in English. So you might see some things in Spanish.
But the assessment would show, right? Like clearly they're not mastering that standard because I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
I'm thinking
like,
math,
sorry,
right? Okay, so like we do STAR in English and Spanish, right? So we truly understand where that scholar is at based on their English proficiency or if they truly understand the concept. So for math, you might sometimes, so I know for me, sometimes when I was teaching, I would have a scholar who didn't speak any English. And so when it came to math, they would completely fail the test when I gave it to them in English. So I'm like, hold on, mom was telling me he's fantastic in math. Let me go back and put some of these in Spanish so I can really assess what this scholar knows just in the math concept. So I can see, do they understand how to do the quadratic formula? Because that's what I'm assessing in math. I'm not necessarily assessing their English proficiency there. So that being said, sometimes you'll see things scaffolded up and some Spanish on there because we're meeting the student where they're at, but the goal is to have them in English.
So I think we're probably going to need to have a bigger discussion about that because that's not across the organization. I guess I can let Christy speak because she's the expert in all things EL, but I think that might be I'm just going to make a quick note if that's okay. I think that might be a bigger discussion we might have to have because that's not the practice that's happening across the organization. So I appreciate Christina. I think we're saying the same thing. I think we're on the same page. I just want to make sure that we're at our the vocabulary we're using is aligned with that. So I appreciate that clarification.
So then this is why I kind of jumped in and mentioned those connection meetings because, if we have a English learner, they might be developing their reading and their speaking skills, but the writing skills, that's usually one of those last skills that they develop. So if a scholar turns in something that has in Spanish or a different language on there, this is a entry point for the supervising teacher to discuss that. Hey, I see that you were, learning about fractions, or whatever it might be, but I didn't quite understand, the assignment. So can you tell me more about it? Right? Since we had a connection meeting, then we had that venue for the scholar to say, oh, right, sorry, that was hard. I couldn't write it, but this is my learning. And then they can tell us they can share verbally because they're still acquiring the language. So I just want people to think that it's just that work sample, and that's what we go off of at the end of the day for the grades. There's that connection meeting is really important. It's required. They get tiered, and they can actually face involuntary withdrawal if they don't meet with the connection meeting. And that's learning coach and scholar every month.
So, as far as us as an organization, we are a structured English immersion school, and how, in other words, like what is precisely accepted by the school, that has to be determined by our administration, okay? However, when we look at the English learners, if, like what Christina said and what Jason said, they're really like emergent and they're newcomers, then what happens is they will need to rely on their native language in order to grasp content area knowledge. So, and that's something that's very commonly done with English learners as they're transitioning. They're relying on what they already know, and they're making those connections. So that is just the natural process of transitioning to English, to another language. So yes, it's really important when we're teaching them that they understand content. We also want to be careful not to make them feel like their native language is like viewed as bad, because it's actually just a building block for them. So we do need to be careful that we want to assert our scholars. We don't want them to feel inferior because they're learning a new language. But at the same time, we need to build and help them acquire the language. So what does that mean? That's that integrated ELD support that's provided by the teacher. So a lot of building on vocabulary, right? Adding those scaffolds, really that focus on academic vocabulary and really helping them learn that information in English so that when they take a test that is in English, because that's the thing, their curriculum is in English, so they have to be able to access that curriculum in English, they'll be successful. But they can use their native language as a scaffold to attain that information in English, is where I'm coming from. Now, as far as what is accepted as far as work samples, I know there's a difference between work samples for attendance and then there's work samples for achievement. That is something that honestly, I have not received a clear answer on that. I know what the state says, and for English learners, for those kids that need that support, we as a school should be asserting them. And for those kids who need it, if they're showing their content understanding, then it should be okay because they're showing their understanding for a work sample. But at the same time, I understand they need to take their tests and complete their curriculum in English. I'm hoping that was clear. It's a really, it's kind of a difficult subject, and it can be very confusing.
It is. Christy, you did that so beautifully. I'm sorry to say that. Thank you for stating that so beautifully for all of us. That made complete sense.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christy. And I just wanted to just add a little note. As an ST, I had quite a few. I probably had half of my roster or more that was, English learners. And it was the first year that we offered the Spanish Star was really a revelation, because my roster was just like, when it came to scores, it was like red, right? It just looked like they were all so low performing. And the first year we were able to administer Star in Spanish was the first time I saw green everywhere with my EL scholars. So number one, for me, it was like, wow, look at how well they understand concepts and how well they're progressing. Like they were actually on grade level and above, as long as they could show their knowledge in Spanish, right? And then for them, all of a sudden it gave them the sense that, oh, I'm not just in constant struggle, right? My grades don't always have to be low. I can show that I really am progressing. And yes, they struggled with their English acquisition, but they continued to work on it. They continued to make progress, but it built their self-confidence as a learner that they were very capable. And I think that that's an important part for us, especially like in our options program and in our school in general, just promoting that idea that every learner has that capability of growing and that we can show their success in a variety of ways. We don't have to hold them to only one way of showing what they know.
I just wanted to add one thing real quick, because what everyone has provided as input has been awesome. I think that the main holdup sometimes, and kind of to go back to what Janae was mentioning too, is sometimes there is that difference between the work sample, meaning like the work sample as like an ADA, like to ensure that that kiddo is actually attending and we have the work sample. But it's also important to be ensuring that we are collecting something maybe that's more kind of outside of that, those 2 work samples a month, to track and be able to kind of monitor where that language acquisition is. So like Christy mentioned, like especially those newcomers that are coming in, we know that they're going to be struggling immensely with the English language, but we do want to see something that's going to be showing how they are progressing. And so we can see that in, like Alyssa mentioned, like the STAR Spanish, we can see that within Lexia Growth. We can see that when the tutors are working with them, we can see it within their exit tickets. But I think that sometimes that's what there's that confusion of the difference between that work sample, like work samples just to kind of ensure that those kiddos are getting the ADA versus those that are showing more of that academic progress. So I think maybe that's sometimes where that confusion kind of comes in, because there's kind of 2 different reasons that we're, 2 different things that we're kind of looking at in terms of really looking to see where that kiddo is. So I just wanted to add that piece too.
Casey, you still have a question?
Yes, my question is unrelated to EL. So if anyone else has any questions regarding this topic, jump in now before I shift gears a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to wrap it up with one of the tools that I use is the California Consortium of Independent Study. And it states that work samples for specific courses that we have aligned to our master agreement should be in the English language. But that, again, given what we shared, it does not negate the fact that we still need to provide support for our scholars that are developing their English language skills. So we utilize these different resources and different strategies to try to get a baseline to improve development, because they're 2 different things that we're assessing here. We're assessing language acquisition, and we're also assessing content mastery. And we do not want to hurt scholars because they are developing a language or acquiring a language. We have to be able to find different ways to discern their abilities and assess them on that. And that is why independent study, home education is so valuable, because we don't have to do things as prescriptive as we see in traditional brick and mortar. You got it, Erin.
Sorry, I do have one more question, and it's actually not even a question, but just like in regards to what Alyssa put in the chat, like that's awesome, that portfolio that they're using to kind of track and monitor that progress. But I think what's hard sometimes from the support teams is we don't see that in Seesaw. We only are able to see the work samples. So I think that that's where it comes up, like this question comes up, because we don't see that. And so even like going back to the SST discussion the other day, and that's kind of what we're talking about. It's not as if we're wanting the STs to be submitting additional work samples, but if there's a way for us to use some of that they're submitting or that they're collecting as that portfolio, that might help our teams at better informing our supports as well. So it's not necessarily that we're asking for anything in addition to, but if there is more that's within Seesaw, like how can we I guess lean in on what's already in existence. So that's kind of, again, like going back to that conversation around SSTs, we're never asking the STs to do any more, but what can we use? Because we can't, like our team can go in and accelerate education and like pull whatever we need to pull. We don't see the portfolio. So that's where we're kind of sometimes flying blind a little bit. And again, it's not us saying like, we want to throw anything more on anyone. That is not it at all. We just sometimes are like, what can we see? What's tangible that exists that we can look at so that we don't have to go into a discussion with a parent blind. So that maybe that's like for a further discussion. I think maybe that could help even better build that bridge. Because if that portfolio exists, that may be something that we really could use some support from the ST on that can help with our knowledge. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, Jason did add the point to having access to the PLP, and we work to align how that is going to be utilized throughout this year. We made some adjustments and we made some changes, so we should be able to see more data and more information on the PLP. But I would also just suggest to actually, reach out to the teachers, schedule a meeting, review that work with them if it's regarding a specific scholar. They have access to the tool. I know everyone doesn't, but since they're the holders of that information, collaborating with the coordinator and the ST would be a great way to look at that data, so you can help make the decisions in those instructional pivots that you may need to make. All right, Casey, I don't know if Jen, did you have something to add on to what we were saying here? Is it going to be so? Okay, great. Casey?
I was going to say the same thing, Jen. If this is related, go ahead and jump in, because I have something completely different. I'm so sorry, team, if I missed this, so please forgive me. This came up during ordering and allotted funds. So for example, what happens if a scholar enrolls in the spring and the ordering window closes? How can they get curriculum? What curriculum do they utilize, especially in high school?
They would use Freckle. Freckle is the standard curriculum that they would have access to. If there are other specific curriculum that they needed to get support with, every month the funding, it shrinks. So if they came in the first month after the start of the semester, their funding is going to be limited all the way up until March, I believe, where they will not have any funding. And so what they will be able to get, they will be able to utilize resources that are in the curriculum locker that's housed at the Thousand Oaks office, and utilizing other online resources that will not require educational funding. So that is one of the big things. That's not even in the second semester. That is also even coming at the end of the first semester, where those funds may not be accessible. We may be able to give them a little bit earlier access to their second semester funds if they come in the first semester, but specifically for that second semester, if they're not having their orders put in by that time, then we will be able to provide them those free resources that we have, which is why it was so important for us to secure programs such as Freckle to make sure that everyone could have access to their online materials in that way. And then also that'll be the same thing for our EO scholars. They'll have access to Lexia, so they'll be able to work and be able to get the support that they need to ensure that we can assess them to determine if they're making adequate progress.
Thanks, Keelan. Yeah, I guess I should have been a little bit more specific for high school. So if they're taking A through G courses, they're transferring in from another school, are they expected to utilize the curriculum locker to obtain that curriculum, or are they enrolled in Google Classrooms?
So in those different cases, if they're taking those A through G courses, during that time, it is most likely they're going to be connected to do that work with Janae in the AE program. So if they have those online courses, then they would be taking those. If it's any more than 3 courses, then they would be fully enrolled in her program. So they would be able to get that support through that way. All good, Casey? Okay. Jen?
Yeah, this is a little bit further up in the chat when we were talking about attendance and truancy and assignments completed. And I feel like there was something mentioned in there about activity logs and LCs going in and completing activity logs. And then someone mentioned something about deleting that if an LC puts it in too soon. And I was curious about that because my STs are not digging through activity logs daily like that to be looking and seeing and confirming attendance and all that. And also, I thought if an LC puts something in that activity log, we are trusting that that is on them, that their kiddo is doing work. So I'm a little like curious how that works in activity logs and all that. I know that they don't submit, you can't submit until the learning period is over. But I know that it automatically saves now when the LC does it. So when they click math, English, social studies for that day, it saves, which I love that feature. Because then the parent doesn't, they're like, I filled it out, what happened? So I was just a little bit curious about that and the idea of, I guess I'm asking a couple questions. The trust that we have in our LCs to do their activity log and say they're doing work. Do you just go back later and check and go, oh, you said they did work, but they didn't? Like, maybe it's different for online. And maybe I just need to understand the difference. So I don't know, clarification on that maybe, or.
Yeah.
So Jen, I think you got, oh, sorry, Christina, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, she asked a couple questions there. You can
Yes.
take one.
Okay,
So our
I was
ST, go ahead,
I
Heather,
was
go.
just gonna say for you, I believe that your handbook, your kiddos need to go in and do work like in their work every day online. Our kids are doing work on the side, but our parents, like our compliance pieces, our parents are supposed to be marking daily activities like they did math and language arts today. Yes, and then the next day we're doing social studies and science. They are not to go in, and some parents want to do it, they just want to save themselves the work. They go in and mark it ahead of time, but that's not really showing compliance. They need to, it's okay if they do it in arrears, because then they can say, yes, I did math, I did language arts. But so some parents are just lazy-ish and they want to go ahead and just, I'm in here, I'm gonna just mark my whole month. So we want them to do, it's okay here. So our STs check once a week. I think on Wednesdays to see like, are they up to date? Otherwise we notify them like, hey, you need to catch up. And then if they're not caught up on Friday, we'll go ahead and send the tiered one. So for us, it's a little bit of a different compliance piece than it is for you. Christina, you have more?
Yeah, and I was just going to add on, that being said, sometimes we'll have learning coaches get in there and mark, we did everything every single day, right? Math, language, science, social studies, they do it all. And then we get to the end of the learning period and we're like, well, you're truant tiered re-engagement because we don't have any body of work. There's no samples. At that point, I know we should trust the learning coaches, but that's where our STs kind of come in and have that monthly connection meeting. And we start talking about, well, what work were you guys working on? Let me see what you were doing, because our STs are signing their name, stating that, yes, I agree, these scholars worked on all of these subjects every day. And if they can't verify that and they're not confident in it, then they will go back and change it.
Okay. And I think there is obviously a difference between online and options. Yes, we want our kids logging in every day and accessing the curriculum. They do work offline. So if they're working on a project or a paper or something, so they may not have accessed it. But I guess I have just always, I think it's just the difference in the programs, and that's totally fine. I thought I had another question about attendance and truancy and all that, but it could just be the difference in the programs. I did have a curious question. I have a question that's curious. Your funds that you get, and Casey, I'm glad you asked that question. If a kiddo comes in, which we get kids all the time, right? We get kids in November, December, February, March, April, May, sometimes in June. But if I have a kid and I'm enrolling in the options program, and you're telling me you're a little late and there's no funds, you get to work in Freckle. As a parent, I'm going to be like, huh? To me, that's not, and maybe I don't know all of the extensiveness of Freckle, but like at that point, is there a conversation where we say, hey, we can't do the funds now. Do you guys promote our program and say, you know what, online would be a really great option right now to finish off this school year, because they get AE curriculum and they get courses and they get all of that instead of just Freckle? Like, I guess I'm just wondering if you can ship them over to us to complete the school year and get all those courses and all that versus Freckle.
Yeah, and I think part of it depends on when they come in too. And I think that this was missed. Our course scheduling, it changes too, right? With counseling based on when they enroll. So like last year, our high schoolers that were enrolled in late April, early May, like they were only getting assigned for our high schoolers one course at that time. So we're only worried about finding curriculum for that one course. And we also had a Band-Aid there where we have that curriculum locker, and we were able to put $25 into their OPS account so they could go through our curriculum locker with their one course, knowing that they have it, and decide what is in there that I can use in the meantime, and we could supplement with Freckle. So it's not like they come in last 3 weeks of school and we're like, surprise, you have 5 courses, you need to figure it out through Freckle. That's not at all how it is. It's only one course, and then we help them with curriculum locker. It's free for them to get whatever they want out of that, and then we supplement with Freckle. But we could totally promote you guys too on the
I
online
just think I put my mom hat on.
Yeah.
And if I really want an options program or a homeschool idea where I'm teaching at home, but I come into the program late for whatever reason, and I get to choose from a curriculum locker, which who knows what I'm going to get, or Freckle, I personally would be like, I'm out. Like, I don't know if this is for me. And so I would say, if we could offer that option to come over to online for those last 2 months or 3 months, just to have a body in our program and show them we're awesome. And then, you know, if they like that, they can move to options the next school year. I just wondered, I'm not saying like, give us all your kids. I'm just saying, can we offer something a little better than Freckle for the rest of the, like, I don't know. Janae, I think Janae has something to ask about that too. So, or no.
Yeah.
Oh,
This is something that Janae and I both talked about. So I'm glad she's going to bring voice to it.
Well, I hope, I don't know. I hope so. Galen gave me a lot of credit when he said, go for it in so many words. I guess I just have a question. I have a few questions. I'm not quite, I still am trying to wrap my head around how Freckle meets the core curriculum needs. But also you were saying, Deborah had mentioned about so we've had zero luck with the lending library in helping to provide resources for even like our late start online scholars, like if they needed a novel or like even trying to get our AP books back so we can resend them. So we've really struggled with the lending library. It hasn't been very efficient for our needs with some of those consumables that we do have it online. So I was just I guess it would just be interesting for me to know, like, if they're getting, I think that helped too with Christina, you're saying like, yeah, they're having reduced classes and then in the older grades, and that they do get like some $25 in OPS. So I think that helps to clarify that. I just would be interested to see, like, as it comes down the pike, like what that looks like in the lending library, because I haven't had a lot of luck aligning the items in the lending library to what I've needed for scholars. So I'm just making kind of a statement to say, like, I wonder if there's room or space for more collaboration regarding that. I know we don't oversee the ins and outs of the lending library. I'm just really interested to see how that had worked for you guys, because we haven't had a lot of luck with it meeting our needs and online, because we get directed there, but we haven't necessarily had anything come from it, you know? So I just would be interested, like, throughout the year, if you guys have had a lot of, you know, as the year continues, if you see success or things like that, because I think there might be a bigger conversation we can have about it. So that's just a statement. Also, Freckle, okay, the Williams Act, thank you for clarifying that. And then, yeah, I'm going to say, it's interesting because we have online, we've had some scholars who have started late, and they would start with options and they're like, well, I don't get all my funds, so they're going to go to online, and then they're going to transfer back at the beginning of the school year, which I think is something that maybe we need to have a bigger conversation about, only because of you guys know, the coordinators, like, that movement's hard. I'm sorry, but that is overwhelming and hard. And I just wonder if there's space to have a bigger conversation about that. I'm just saying this, put in everyone's brains, like, just to know that, like, me and Jen, our online department at this moment, are open for having that discussion too, to help meet those needs of those scholars that are late starts. Because I understand, like, we got to cut it off at some point, because Jeannie's department has to close it out by that deadline, right? So I wonder if there's just more room for collaboration for that as well. So just put that in your minds.
Yeah.
Not to
overwhelm. Yeah, and what I was leading to, didn't mean to force a comment into your mouth, Janae. It was just more about, we see that there's a need for alignment between our high school programs specifically, and how we are trying to ensure that these different type of pathways can be addressed with further collaboration. And so we are trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to ensure an entire, like, high school experience all of our scholars, and what's going to be the best way to make sure that if you have that personalized need that you want, that you know, project-based pathway, great. If you want that more structured kind of, scheduled approach, we want to be able to have that pathway open for all scholars, not necessarily saying you have to be tied to a specific program in a specific way. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate on that and help us get forward. So I know right now we're at 11:51, so we're 9 minutes or 8.5 minutes or so to our end time. And I know this overview kind of dug a little bit deeper, more into a deep dive. But I really do appreciate the questions, as I know as we continue doing this work within this organization, we see that with this being a pretty good chunk of our organization, a lot of us have to do a lot of our systems and a lot of our approaches connected with our scholars, with our STs, with our coordinators, with our LCs. So we want to make sure that we get it right. And we do really appreciate your attentiveness and the questions that you're asking. Hopefully this is allowing you to be able to do what you do better, because we know that the feedback and the questions that you ask us, we're already in our taking our notes in our notebooks to figure things out that we want to bring up, will allow us to kind of review where we are and identify ways for us to get better. So are there any other questions that we want to address before we adjourn this meeting? All right, you got it, Jim.
Maybe just a statement, since like the guts of options are here, and some other really great voices. Speaking for our little online program, I would love to just open and keep open the lines of communication between the online and the options program, because there are times where it does feel a little like we're on our own islands. And we all know that we're very different. Everybody here that's been here longer than a year knows we're different programs, but we're all here together for the same focus, and that's the kiddos and success. And so I would just reiterate or ask or repeat over and over that we just communicate. Online is small, and there's really only 2 of us right now to reach out to ask questions or to communicate with. And you guys are larger, and that's sometimes difficult, but I appreciate when I do reach out and you guys are communicative. But just keeping the lines of communication open about our programs and our kiddos and families, and understanding where each other's coming from. I would love and appreciate that tenfold. So just more of a statement, because I know it is happening, but more often and consistent would be great. So
just to echo that, I say, yeah, here to that, Jen Tatum. That's that would be a wonderful world to live in, right? I spent a substantial amount of time in both programs, like over 5 years an online high school teacher, and now I've been in options. And I can tell you guys, we have passionate, caring teachers. We have a supportive administrative staff, right? So although there might seem like there's a division, we're all here, doing the same thing. And I think, if I don't say it to myself, I think we're doing a pretty good job at it. So here.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, Jen, too. I'm just not trying to analyze your statement. I would take that you're feeling that there is not that communication. And so that's something that I definitely want to address. I know that I communicate very well with Janae. We meet often, and we're constantly trying to, figure out things and collaborate and support each other. She's helped me out so much last year. So I know that window and that pathway is open for us to do that. So we'll definitely look to identify any roadblocks that will be preventing that from happening, and make sure that we're here. Because like we talked about in the summer, like it's not about our individual work, it's about the scholar. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're trying to do. And if a scholar from the options program graduate, that's good for everybody. If a scholar graduates from the online program, that's good for everybody. So no one gets any special kudos for one doing more or not. Because when we don't have graduation, we're not hitting our testing numbers, regardless of the program, we'll all be impacted. So it's just important to keep that in mind. And we will definitely continue to open up those pathways of communication.
Yeah, I didn't want you to read too much into it. It was more of it is happening at the director and coordinator level. I will say drop down to that next level of the ST, and I hate to say drop down, but Let's all be honest, that's just kind of the terms we use. But as you kind of get down to the trickle of the real true, like who we are, which is our STs, we got to just make sure that communication too. So maybe I'm more speaking to the ST level, is that coordinators, I feel like we've been great, directors have been great. But as we get larger groups of people, I just want to make sure that my STs are communicating with y'all, and it just takes a text or a phone call to say, hey, we just got this new kiddo, can you tell me about him? Yes, all the PLPs and all the contact manager and all the things are great, but sometimes if you guys know me and you know me long enough, I'm super relational and I want to just have a conversation. I feel like you can get a lot from that. And so maybe that's more what I'm asking and putting out there, is that through the organization and amongst our STs, just really, we are very different, but we're the same. We're going for the same thing. So just continue that communication. I don't know. I've talked too much. Thank you. This was great.
All right, Linda.
Yeah, I just want to say, I like Jen, am very relational, but I think too, we do have, you know, Jason, who has been on both sides. So whenever we have a question, we got it covered, right? But I know something last year that we started to do was have liaisons to different departments. Like maybe we can have a liaison that just once a month or whatever pops into one of your meetings and it's like, question, answer, let's see, you know, and just kind of that kind of relational thing that might really be beneficial. Because we are very different, but it was like, Jen and I were in a private room and a chat, and she's like, it was last year. She's like, okay, what do you do at OCLC? So, I mean, we still don't know all the ins and outs, right? So I just think it would be great if we can have a liaison or do something like that. I think it would work both ways to kind of help, you know, bridge all those little gaps.
All right, Casey, I think this will be our final one.
Yep, sorry, I know we're out of time here, but just on that note too, Linda, I think, and I'm not sure if y'all are aware of this, but the directors kind of just talked about this, doing a coffee with the departments Q&A one Tuesday a month, just to kind of be there to align the work. And if there's any questions from STs, the department heads will be there. They'll see us on the same page, and that, you know, collaboration will naturally occur, building that trust. So I'm really hopeful that in addition to the liaisons, the coffee with departments will build that relational capacity as well. So I'm hopeful that we'll have clear lines of communication this year. Yes, Wednesday cadence, once a month.
Awesome. Okay, well, again, thank you so much. Casey, are there any kind of parting words that you want to share in terms of any next steps after all of this?
Sure thing. So I'll download the recording team, and then once it's uploaded or converted to YouTube, I'll put it in that FAQ doc. I'll also share it in the chat again. If you could just add your slide deck and make it accessible for everybody on that Thursday 8/17 options department overview section, that would be super helpful, so we can access that later. And then if anyone else has any follow-up questions, you can ask your question directly on that document as well, and then you can tag the right person who could probably help you with that question, answer your question. So that's it for follow-up.
Awesome. All right, thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. We look forward to future communications and collaboration. Have a great Thursday.